So when Alan, we originally talked about this, Alan was like, well, what are 5 things that I see to make successful candidates? And it's really hard to narrow that down because what success is dependent on the person. So, that's kind of like success. What is it? So the first thing that I kind of think that makes a successful candidate is going to be active. I put up George's, the Hired and the 20-minute, because I like both of these books because these are really about the job seeker being active in the actual process, not being passive, waiting for people to contact them. George is great. I mean, George talks about kind of a lifestyle in job seeking. So there's a lot going on there. And I think that puts you in a good mindset and moves you forward in that arena. And so, whoops, sorry about that. I'm trying to catch up here. So also the 20-minute network meeting, that's all about being active, moving out there and networking, talking to people. It's you doing something instead of just, oh, I sent my resume and now I'm waiting. You're always kind of active in something. You're always kind of moving forward. There's a lot happening, and it keeps you kind of, leaning forward into the job seeking. So you're active now. You've got to be prepared. We've talked about this quite a bit. What are you looking for? I kind of mentioned it in the first slide. What is success? What are you looking for here? Are you looking for money? Well, I know we talk about kind of, some of the theories around negotiation and, he who mentions money first loses. But if that's your main driver, you better be prepared to talk about it right up front. Do some research. When I got hired at York, they did the standard thing. Well, what are you looking for? I said, well, I'm open. What are you offering? They gave an amount. I already knew what the amount was because I had done the research. So they said the amount. I knew that was the appropriate amount. I said, yeah. But also in there too, for me, working at York was a transition. So I looked at a lot of it. What is the experience? I am moving from one area to another. So, I've talked about a few people. To me right now, I'm in a paid internship. I am learning how to be a recruiter and getting paid to do it. So, sometimes what you're looking for doesn't have to necessarily be money. I threw a couple other things up there. We get candidates all the time say, yeah, I want to be paid fairly, but what I really want is the challenge of working with the newest technology. What's out there. When I was at the MACV, talk to veterans all the time. They're like, I want to be of service to other veterans. So there's a lot of different stuff that is rewarding, not just money, but you need to know about that before you go into the job or the job interview or even the job seeking process. What do you want out of it? If it's just the money, you got to be prepared. You got to be prepared to talk about money right off the bat. If it's work-life balance or experience or the challenge, any of those things, this is where looking at the previous slide, you're being active. Now you're being prepared. You're out there doing some research. But we talk about money too. What are you worth? This is a job is a trade-off. I give you my time and skills, you give me money. So you have to kind of know what you're worth. But we talked about it last week. It's got to be kind of a legitimate thing because, that's the recommendation is, ask them what they budget. Well, I'll tell you, every time I tell somebody a pay range, they always come in top of the pay range. Oh yeah, I'm worth this. And it's like, I'm looking at your resume, you're not worth that. You're definitely down here or in the middle or where it's going. So that's why it, pays for the job seeker to know what the market value is and where they fall in the market value. But there's other things as well. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people miss the benefits that are of monetary value, whether it's medical or dental, 401ks, stock options. There's other stuff along the way that may or may not be able to be negotiated, or it might be part of it. When we talk to people, quite often we say, well, here's the salary range, but there's also a $5,000 sign-on bonus. You get these stock options, and all of a sudden, the end of year bonus is 50%. So, if we just talk the salary, they are actually not going to understand what the actual monetary value of the position is. But there's also the intangibles. And we've talked about it in here, remote working, but also PTO. Sometimes you're able to negotiate, well, I know that your company says 30 days of PTO a year, but I would like 40. The company might look at, well, that's a really cheap way to get somebody in the door. So that's sometimes something. Work-life balance. If your main driver is work-life balance, then don't be shooting necessarily for that high-paying job. Start saying, I'm willing to take a little less money, and that trade-off is going to be a work-life balance. Now, is your resume ready? We talk about resumes all the time. I generally recommend that you have a resume that has absolutely everything on it, because it's a lot easier to cut and paste off a prepared resume to make a tailored resume. Then you can also, I generally have 3 to 4 resumes on hand. One's the general, the kitchen sink and everything. Then I start looking at maybe industry specific, job specific, whether I'm going to focus on my military experience or I'm going to focus on my civilian experience. Am I going to include, what level of education am I going to include? What am I going to, there's different things there. So having that, overarching resume will let you cut and paste a resume really quickly. Oh, I found a job. I want to apply for it. Well, I can cut and paste a resume in 15 minutes instead of rewriting a resume in 2 hours. So that's kind of one of the things I recommend. Be able to talk about your resume. We talk about people, you don't lie in a resume, but you also upsell yourself, but you also have to be able to talk about it. So, that's what they have in front of them. They're gonna be asking, hey, tell me about this. I do that all the time. A person's always ready to talk about the position they're in or they just have. Oh, well, tell me about this position that, just before, the one you had just before your last position. Get so many people all of a sudden stumped, or they're stuttering, or they're not in that mindset of being able to talk about everything on their resume. I may ask about a specific, oh, hey, it says on here that you're a Scrum Master. When did you get that? Do you have that little certification number? Can you send me your certificate? And all of a sudden, they're like, yeah, let me get that to you. Or, well, I don't quite have it yet. So you got to be able to, anything that goes on that resume is a fair game for either a hiring manager or recruiter. Now, I put on there in the bottom, I don't know how many people are familiar with it, the joint service transcript. Now, that was actually kind of designed to apply for colleges and universities, to be able to translate your military experience into military credits. But it's also a really good thing for you to start translating your military experience into civilianese, because they kind of already start that process on there. It will also tell you a lot of things that you did that you don't really realize you did, because you're so used to kind of doing them, you don't understand that you did them. So this is not a bad place. You go there, you sign in, you can get a printout copy or a save a copy. You can start using that. So that's one of the things that, if you're having trouble with translating your military skill set into civilian, great place to start right there. Now also, you've sent out your resumes, somebody wants to actually talk to you, and they're saying, yep, we want to set up a interview. Do you have time tomorrow at 2 o'clock? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you need to be able to tell them, nope, these are my availability times. Or yep, I can schedule something around that. But in this job market, I've got somebody who contacted me today that I messaged a week and a half ago, and he said, oh, sorry for the delay. Is that position open? No, it's not. Now I may have another position that's come open. So, but it's a thing, you know, that's the thing with York. We have so many positions coming and going, and there, you know, there's a lot of general ones that they sometimes they can miss them. But if it's a niche job and you take a week and a half to get back to somebody if they've reached out to you, or even if you take a week and a half after it's been posted, it's going to be a good chance that that may have already been picked up, and you know, they may still be posted, but they may have interviewed 4 people and already have somebody in mind. So, you know, be ready to do a phone screen, phone and video interviews. Can you do an interview, a phone video interview? You know, the background, your background needs to be non-distracting. It needs to, you don't want to be in shadow. There's a lot of different things that go into it. You know, does your technology, do you have Zoom loaded on your computer? Can you do a Zoom resume? And we're getting back to the in-person stuff. I've not had a client request in-person interviews yet, but when I interviewed at York, it was an in-person interview. Pretty easy to print up a hard copy resume, but I put on their interview clothing, and I put on their COVID weight is real, because I'll tell you, I had to run out and buy a suit to go interview at York. So, you know, have these things in mind. This is part of being prepared. You know, when you're starting the job seeking process, don't wait until the last minute. Learn from my mistakes. Here's kind of one that's, it sounds kind of silly, but really, literally, know when to stop talking. You know, the interview is going to ask a question. Answer that question, and then let them process it. We have, you know, there's plenty of stories within our company of, you know, candidates that have talked themselves out of the job because they didn't know when to stop talking. They answered the question, then they kept going, and the interview wasn't even, you know, they're like, I've got an hour and you took 30 minutes on my first question. You know, I'm not going to be able to finish this interview. Then it gets rushed, and also now everything's rushed. Things aren't going well. So answer the question. Stop. You can check with them. Did you get what you needed? Oh, okay. You need a little bit more. Let me give it a little bit more. But you need them. Let them do their job. You know, let them either decide they're going to move you forward, or they're going to rule you out. And so, literally know when to stop talking. So, kind of to wrap everything up, we'll go back to the cute dog face. You know, this is a thing where, you know, I put the saying is, you know, be the person you think your dog, that your dog thinks you are. You need to understand that this is your interview. Be positive about it. Be ready to go in there. It's a good thing. Don't get freaked out about it. And that's part of being prepared. You know, this is something that you can move forward with, and it's a good thing. So, and now I'm going to stop sharing, and we can kind of go on to the question and answer, I guess.